In a dramatic turn of events similar to what many non-political Americans have experienced during the COVID lockdown jab mandate madness, Republicans in the New Jersey Assembly and Senate defied a recent get jabbed or get lost edict from the Democrat majority. And they not only saw New Jersey state troopers at the State House acknowledge their rights, they emerged victorious in court. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV, and here's the story as Mike Catalini reports for the Associated Press. The mandate, well, it wasn't a statute. It wasn't an executive order from unctuous New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. He, by the way, who last year told Tucker Carlson that paying attention to the Bill of Rights was above his pay grade, and who also, by the way, just proposed even more anti-constitutional, anti-rights gun grab statutes in New Jersey. It wasn't any of those. And even if it had been, it's important to remember that any of those kinds of moves themselves would have been unconstitutional and immoral. No, instead, this move by the Democrats was a security dictate. To be jabbed or repeatedly have to show a negative test. Said test, by the way, to be purchased by every representative or senator who refused to be jabbed. And the test or the jab proof would be required to enter the Assembly or Senate. It was arranged by the Democrat majority through the State Capitol Joint Management Commission. Now, that commission typically handles how the building and its maintenance and parking and security will be run. So, if you get the impression that maybe, just maybe, the Democrats were eager to make it more expensive and difficult for conservative GOP assembly members and senators, especially those who opposed taking the jab that was probably made through the use of aborted fetal stem cells, yeah, if you think that maybe they might have been trying to suppress their vote, well, you're in good company. State Senator Steve Orojo and Assemblyman John DeMaio, the Republican minority leaders of the New Jersey Senate and Assembly, well, they fought back, and they did it in court and in the State House. All, yeah, you got it, while crickets played in the halls of the governor's palace. As matters reached a boiling point Thursday, November 2nd, it appeared that the Democrat plotters would get their way. Writes Catalini, quote, disorder and confusion erupted in the halls outside the New Jersey Assembly on Thursday as several Republican lawmakers defied a new requirement to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination, wink, wink, or a negative test, and were blocked by state troopers, albeit briefly, from entering the ornate chamber. But those standing up for their rights would not be cowed. Quote, you have no right to stop us, Assemblymember Eric Peterson said. You see this? You see this, folks? Denying us entry into our house. This is America, Assemblymember Hal Worth added. Lawmakers compared the situation to something that might happen in a dictatorship. Actually, it's something that can and will happen in a state and a nation where the fundamental understanding of natural rights has been clouded into near invisibility and morphed into the belief that a polis is a defender of natural rights rather than what it is, a predator of and opponent to individual sovereignty and free will. It's what inevitably will arise when the populace embraces a fallacious political tendency to claim that control of the state via the majority or the loudest vocal minority, aka democracy, that all of that is somehow the zenith of political intercourse rather than what it actually is, gang violence that we've been told would be constrained by a constitution. Clearly, those constitutional constraints don't matter a lot to politicians, especially when they can aggrandize power unto themselves and block opposition. And that appears to be precisely what the Democrats in New Jersey were trying to do. Quote, a handful of the GOP lawmakers cleared the doorway after Assembly member Brian Bergen asked troopers, I can go 30 feet that way, 30 feet that way, but not that way? Signaling towards the chamber. Moments later, some other Assembly members who had earlier declined to show vaccination wink-wink cards or a negative test walked into the room unblocked. An email seeking an explanation was sent to the state police. Later, what appeared to be close to the full 28-member Republican minority were sitting in their seats in the Assembly. And that got some of the Democrats angry. No, not just angry. We have to remember that this is politics after all, so it has to rise to a greater level of outrage. Democratic Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin called it a colossal failure of security in a speech from the floor that chastised Republicans, saying that people throughout the state have made similar concessions during the pandemic. He said he was outraged because, Omicron, security, or whatever scaremongering rhetoric you like. And to think that Democrat Assembly member Coughlin, the speaker, can employ the Hegelian dialectic here, citing the idea that, as Catalini words it, people throughout the state have made similar concessions during the pandemic, is nearly as offensive as the jab or papers mandate itself. Those people, Mr. Assembly Speaker, they had the fundamental right to be left alone. Their so-called concessions were, on the whole, involuntary actions, coerced from them, dictated to them by people like you and your pal, Governor Phil, above my pay grade, Murphy. Your behavior and words indicate that you lack any semblance of understanding about how you and your political ilk have stripped away the rights of the people. You act as if it's perfectly natural, perfectly quaint and customary to whip the skin off the backs of your citizen serfs. Your cupidity is breathtaking, your audacity wild. You herald and promote the political power that opposes all that is actually natural to man. And by the way, this is not hyperbole, Mr. Assembly Speaker. This is established philosophical history, and it is God-given fact. And of course, the status of things right now, everybody? Well, here it is. Hours later, a state appellate court handed a victory to Republicans who had sued to block the proof of vaccination requirement, granting the GOP's application for a stay of the order and setting a potential hearing date for later this month. It was not immediately clear what effect the ruling would have on the requirement. End quote. But it is clear that the battle in New Jersey tells us two things. First, many people don't have the faintest clue about the rights of their neighbors, or if they do, they just don't care. And second, the battle over courts will be perennial in the United States because the government pits people against each other and makes them want to control the machine. And as they try to control the machine, they try to control each other within the machinery operator's booth. Incredible. Hey, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you're headed over to Rumble, thank you. Appreciate you going over there because, as you know, they don't censor our videos there. You can find us on TikTok, on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and please go to MRCTV.org. That's MRCTV.org to find out what the whole team is doing. And yes, I'm back on Twitter. They blocked me for a week. It was very frustrating. They blocked me for posting cited material from FOIA requested documents about the FDA. So yeah, you might have seen me mention that in a previous video. So I'm back and I'm answering private messages there as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for being interested too. It's crazy seeing the censorship out there. Censorship of factual material. Thanks so much for watching. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.